On we go.
Cool, 1, 2, okay. Hi everyone. So welcome to Mixmag's Future of Dance Music panel. My name is Jaguar. I am a writer and broadcaster working across Mixmag. And this is our lovely panel. So we've got Toby, who is one of the directors of London's Netil radio station. We've got Freddy and Fred in the middle, who are the founder and co-founders of underground music platform Keep Hush. You can see on their t-shirts, repping the brand. And over there, we've got Breakwave, who is an artist, and she is the creator of My Nact, I hope I'm saying that right, Club Night in Liverpool, as well as Deep Sea Frequency Imprint. So, kind of a varied panel. I'd love you guys to maybe say a little bit more about what you do. I don't know if Toby, you want to start, just kind of what you represent and what you're about.
Sure thing. Yeah, my name's Toby. I'm a promoter, broadcaster, and I run a radio station in Hackney in London. We set up a year ago. We are a community radio station, volunteer operation. We are entirely focused on supporting grassroots talent in and around East London and further afield. We're Hackney-centred, but London-orientated, basically. But yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Freddy. I'm the co-founder of Keep Hush. I originally got into music via drum and bass tape packs back in like the late noughties. So I was like living in a village outside Bristol, but living vicariously through this like online community and these tape packs of these amazing club nights that were happening that I couldn't access. So that's what really inspired me to try and capture a sense of that with Keep Hush. So I went off to university. I started writing articles for Keep Hush, which was a blog that Fred was running at the time. I did a little internship at Excel Recordings, and then eventually me and Fred got together. We shared this vision for this kind of community spirit that we wanted to capture. We were cleaning up a whole office building in Soho in return for 2 desks. And by complete fortune, they opened up a basement underneath the building. And then that was it. Like, the rest was history. We started bringing people down, and here we are, 2 years on.
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy dream. And I guess it now feels like a crazy plan. Yeah, I'm Fred. I'm the founder of Keep Hush. I started it in 2014 as a blog, then went on to run club nights, and then was lucky enough to meet up with Freddy, who was the main blog contributor at the time. I got into dance music at about 16 when I managed to sneak into Fabric. I don't know how I managed that. I look young now. I must have looked very young back then. Yeah, and I remember being on the dance floor and hearing that song, Love, Sound and Unity by DJ Hype. And the tune was amazing, but it was more the fact that everyone was dancing. All types of people were dancing to this one tune. Then you go out into the smoky area and you talk to people and you connect them. And that sense of community kind of made me feel part of something and got me locked into the scene. So we now run Keep Hush. It's got 5,000 members in London, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm a DJ and producer under the name Breakwave. As Jaguar said, I run a party called My Nact, which is a series of secret parties in unseen places. So the location isn't announced until the day of the event, which kind of like has like an exciting aspect. People don't know where they're going. So when I started the party, I started live streaming, and that's kind of what generated the interest in Liverpool, because no one in Liverpool was live streaming at the time. So it kind of got, like people that were watching at home, like that, it gave them a sense of what the party was about, like the vibe. But I think like it's really important as well to, even though like media's a good platform, like to actually attend the party to kind of get that vibe. And I'm the co-founder of a record label called Deep Sea Frequency too. That's me.
Cool, thank you guys. So this panel is of course about the future of dance music, and we'll be talking about our predictions, perhaps our exasperations, and kind of reflections on what's going now. So maybe, Fred, if we start with you, because you just said you first went out when you were 16 at Fabric. So my first question is just like, what changes have you seen like in the scene? What changes have you experienced since those first days of clubbing? This is open to all of you, but Fred, if you want to start.
Yeah, when I first started running club nights, the use of Facebook events was so important. And it was really easy to get people onto your Facebook event. You would just get your friends to share it, get everyone else to share it, and those events would kind of take off. And since then, the algorithms came in Facebook. You had to pay for ads to get people into that event now, and still, it's really hard. But yeah, so now there's this weird thing with promoters where they give a really simple proposition, you'd have funk and soul rave, rooftop rave in Brixton, and that's kind of working. But what works best now for us is basically having an email list and going back to the kind of old techniques of promoting. And so that's what we do at Keep Hush, and it's working out really well. But yeah,
we'll often have like Facebook events with like 20 people interested, and like 200 people will come. So it's kind of like, I think that's been one of the biggest changes that we've seen. I mean, we've only been working in music for like 4 years, really, but that whole thing has really changed a lot.
Cool. And Jess, what about you? Obviously, as an artist and a promoter and a label runner, like what changes have you seen so far? Within the industry, like it can be a bit good or bad.
Within relation to like social media, like my party started off as like, Facebook orientated, so that's kind of how I got my following with the Facebook events, and obviously the fact that like they were secret parties and again like a mailing list, so that's how I would reach my audience. Like they would sign up to the mailing list, and they would get the location via that method, and also on social media. So that's kind of how the word as well got out for the party, and that's how it worked.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked a lot about social media here, but obviously streaming is a huge thing, and I think you all kind of deal with streaming in some way. Like, how do you think the concept of streaming has maybe changed how we're clubbing and how we're consuming music? Toby, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Streaming has made clubbing much more accessible than it ever used to be. Basically, you don't actually have to be there in order to experience music. You can take part in a community-orientated vibe. You can talk about music. You can talk about the set like you were there. In fact, I was talking to, was it you, Freddy or Fred? Sorry, last night about how you used to go to D&B raves, and one of the things they do afterwards was set out a tape, and then that would get moved around online, so it meant all the people around the UK who couldn't come down to a rave were still capable of like engaging and gassing about music. So it's something that has actually been, the idea of the playback and the idea of being able to be more than just an experiential event in itself, something that you can bring back and record, has actually been going around for a long time, but we've finally got to the point now where it's starting to slip into people's news feeds, for example. For the last 4 or 5 years, Facebook has very much dominated that through live streaming, etc. But now, very recently, I think it must have something to do with GDPR coming in. We are currently finding that, especially when we do live streams through Netil Radio, that's one of the main ways that we interface with our online community because of how good it is in terms of getting out in front of people. Facebook tends to prioritize the streams and people's news feeds. But very recently we found that copyright has started to become a massive, massive issue. We are having videos flagged within 10 or 20 minutes, getting taken down midstream, which when you've spent ages and ages trying to convince an artist to come down to the station because it's going to be good for them, good for you, get a decent amount of exposure for it, is incredibly infuriating. So now we're in a process of trying to figure out where we can next take people and how to convince people to move from the Facebook platform to wherever it is that we feel would be the optimum place to get exposure through, basically, which is something I'm sure you guys are also dealing with as well.
Yeah, very much so. I think that streaming has become very important. Visuals have become very important. But yeah, as you said, Facebook live streaming is being taken away from us steadily. We've actually got a kind of embedded stream with chat room on our website now that only web members can chat in. So that's really cool. So that's one of our ways of kind of getting around that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I also feel about streaming that it's more of an evolution of stuff that we already had. I think probably because of the fact that I got into music from recordings of DJ sets is probably why I feel like that. But yeah, it is an evolution. But in terms of the visual side, there's been a really interesting trend recently of events, again, I'm talking about events, but events being promoted with just like incredibly simple, just clips of like Boiler Room or like Keep Hush events, or like just someone's phone clip of like a tune going off, a DJ playing and a tune going off. And I actually think that that's really, really cool. It's a lot more authentic than like, you know, those glitzy like promotional videos of like drone shots of the club and like stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know, I think that's really cool, and I think it's essential now for all DJs to have good video footage of them playing, as weird as it might seem. I think it's really important.
Jess, anything to add? Or?
Yeah, like I think like when I started my event, it was kind of at the starting stages of streaming, like as I've explained, like in Liverpool. And it was really important, like for the development of my club night. It was kind of like the media kind of grabbed that attention, and it kind of snowballed from there. So like I used YouTube as a platform to stream, but obviously I faced like the same problems as discussed, like where, you know, it was getting taken down, and you spend like so much time, like and effort trying to get it out there, and then for it to get taken down, you know, like it's an issue. But I think it's really important to have.
Do you think there are any negatives to kind of the influx of social media on events, artists, electronic music?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, like, you know, if you're an artist and you're not good at social media, then it's like, well, I think it would have been game over a few years ago. But I think in a way, like the tools that social media gave us are actually being taken away from us, as they want us to start paying for them. So you do get a lot of DJs now that aren't really utilizing social media particularly. In fact, a lot of the top DJs, even at the moment, don't have social media pages, which is quite refreshing. So that was a negative, but in a way, that's being, I don't know, that's being dealt with in its own way.
Oh, Toby, do you want to add?
Yeah, I do think it's important, though, as it would be with any artist who is intending to make money out of their craft. You have to learn how to market yourself, and if you don't, you find someone else who can do it for you. So to be entirely focused on who it is as you're an artist and say you're too good to be trying to push your services effectively is reductive. It doesn't make sense. I always get into disagreements with my producer friends about this, because they're like, I shouldn't be putting X and X on SoundCloud yet because I'm not quite ready, it's not quite perfect enough. And the fact of the matter is, you have to hit the ground running with this stuff. And unless you play the game isn't going to get played for you, basically.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it's also interesting, like, again, just with social media now, like, so much of it, like, having followers and growing your following, growing your brand, like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, because in some ways, obviously it helps because you're reaching more people if you've got X amount of followers, but it's not going to make your content better, is it, if you've got 20,000 followers?
Not necessarily, but I'm not sure. I don't think that you have to be continuously pushing yourself to put out stuff, basically. It's about creating engaging content, making stuff that people actually want to interact with. That's where people like Inda in front of us come into play. He's the king of content. He's the kind of guy who can sit down, look at what you're doing, and be like, right, this is how you should be presenting yourself. Well, that's not necessarily the worst thing. There are people who aren't inclined to do that, and that's fair enough. But it's not the be-all and end-all. And also, we are approaching a point where the underground is no longer as underground by dint of being as visible as it is, that isn't necessarily the worst thing. It is there are always going to be secular parties who are doing interesting stuff at the very, very edge of what we consider to be cool or interesting or engaging. And whether or not someone like Peggy Goo is pushing her Instagram page left, right, and center isn't going to have any effect on those parties or those promoters or those artists in the long run. So it's just a matter of live and let live, I think.
Yeah, cool, thank you. So there are a lot of amazing initiatives right now going on to kind of diversify lineups. There's no secret that, especially dance music, just the world is very much, can be perceived as kind of male-dominated. But there are some good, initiatives going through, like Smirnoff's Equalising Music campaign and Key Change, kind of to push that more 50-50 male-female balance. Do you guys think we're doing enough as an industry to keep our lineups diverse? And what are your approaches when booking artists or nights to making it diverse? Jess, do you want to start?
Okay, I guess I'll start. Well, when I started my club night, it was, to push other females as well as myself. At the time, I was seeing, a lot of females as well, popping up. I think we've got a lot of work to do. But me, specifically as a promoter, I'm always constantly looking at what other females are doing and, getting other females on the lineup.
Yeah, we think it's really important that...
you sound nervous.
Yeah. We basically feel that the scene is slowly chugging in the right direction on this. A lot of the top DJs, especially in the circles that we operate in, are women now, which is really amazing and inspires women to get involved. Also, you have women actually curating the lineups, which is super helpful and something that probably gets overlooked a bit. But at Keep Hush, we have this event called Technics and Chill, which is an open decks event that anyone can apply to be a part of. And for the last 6 months, we've been running that. We've been managing to run it 50-50, which is really, really cool because it's at this key point where it's between the bedroom and the club. We set up the event to have the decks the wrong way around against the wall, like it would be in a bedroom. And yeah, it's just such a crucial time for women to be getting involved and networking and meeting other people and performing in front of a crowd for the first time. So that's kind of one of our ways of trying to help.
Yeah, I think we've still got a long way to go. But I think, we need more women leaders, people like you, Jess, curating the lineups and being at the forefront. And you're doing a good job of that. And we make sure on our streams that we have women curate the whole show, and that's something we'll continue doing, I think.
I think as well it's a matter of being conscientious about when, as bookers or promoters, about why it is that you're doing it, and making sure that you're aware of what it is that you're presenting to people when you're going out and bringing people getting people involved with the nights. Otherwise, if you're just continuously pushing male-dominated lineups, it's going to reinforce that image with the punters, and it doesn't help it go anywhere effectively.
Yeah, it's very refreshing to have all of these opinions on this panel, and I think I can't stress enough that this is the future of dance music panels. So hopefully that if we all keep going in this direction, we can diversify things. And leading on from that, obviously, it's been a bit of a hot topic recently, but the allegations against Jackmaster at Love Saves the Day, assault allegations. Constantin as well has been in the news, kind of his sexist comments being called out and petitions being signed for him not to play parties at ADE. When things do go wrong, when people make mistakes, and when, it feels like at the moment, a lot of when sexism is happening, it is being called out because when it does happen, it doesn't, as a woman as well, Jess, you can probably relate, it doesn't make a safe environment, it doesn't make you feel safe, it doesn't make you feel like you should be there. So my kind of question is, how can we create and push a safer environment in our clubs and in our industry in general?
I think it's a matter of making sure that people who do call out people aren't stigmatized for it, basically,
Yeah.
and enforcing our industry bodies and big DJs, promoters, etc., to also be engaging with these topics when they come out. The only person who actually spoke out about Jackmaster, the only top DJ, top flight DJ properly, was, well, male at least, was Ben UFO, which is god awful. There's yet to be anyone else who stepped out about it. It's
shocking.
absolutely diabolical. But yeah, it's a matter of creating safe spaces, but also a safe environment for people to feel comfortable enough to actually address them, to be vocal about it, basically.
Yeah, I can't believe he was allowed to still be on lineups after that. I think that should be a zero tolerance.
Yeah, because I feel, although, you know, that it was a whole press thing and it was out in the open, I feel like it wasn't dealt with that much severity in the end.
Definitely not. Yeah, you know, if you're in an office job and you did something like that, you'd be out. You wouldn't be allowed back in that job. So why is he still allowed to DJ? But yeah, I mean, it's a step forward. Love saves the day, call them out, and you got bad press.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I kind of at least felt like it was a step in the right direction, the way that they were quite specific assault allegations, and I think that there was always the potential for it to be dealt with in a very legal way behind closed doors. Whereas at least this way round, with it playing out in the open, Jackmaster's fan base are like aware of what's happened, and like his reputation has been damaged like massively. And yeah, but then what you're saying about, you know, the punishment probably isn't enough. So, you know, yeah, a long way to go basically.
Yeah, I definitely think like they dealt with it, you know, in the right way. Like it should be made public, and you know, and we should be aware that these things are going on. Everybody should be aware that these types of things are going on, and it should be dealt with like there and then.
The one issue I have with the incident, I have quite a few issues with the incident. The main thing was the way it was actually dealt with was to smooth it over effectively. The apology was an amorphous mess. It didn't mean anything. Rather than actually specifying what it was he did, there was a very, very clear campaign put out to make up some other stuff to draw attention away from what actually happened, which is systematically the issue. It's the fact that we have PR marketing teams, management teams who still think that is an acceptable way of going about working with an artist like that. He's seen as a cash cow, and they're still going to try and drag it out. But if the reason he eventually actually admitted to what he did was because it wasn't necessarily someone high up in the hierarchy who was making that decision for him. It was all the rumor mill that got caught off the back of it, and that's the only reason he stepped forward and had to do that, basically. So we've still got quite a way to go, and it's just a matter of putting pressure on those people, not necessarily waiting for someone to get called out, but expecting people to behave responsibly and like you would in any business, basically.
Yeah, I think everyone makes mistakes, and he could be forgiven if he then used his platform to shout out about sexism and stop sexism in music. Not sexism, sorry. Got that wrong. Yeah, kind of all part of the same thing. But yeah, you just need more leaders trying to stop it, and yeah, Jackmaster should be doing that.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is we need to have a lot more men on, like you guys, on side pushing it as well, not just the women, because obviously a lot of people like Black Madonna and Peggy, and they'll advocate for this diversity. But if we have, you know, I mean, I think Jackmaster did say he was doing some work, like he was working with some diverse lineup thing in the past, but clearly not. But yeah, having more men on side as well, pushing it, I think is the answer as well. Thank you, that was really good responses. Jess, what would you like to add?
Just on, you know, like other movements, like Room for Resistance, and, you know, them types of organisations that are pushing the boundaries a little bit further. And obviously, like, we've got, like, agencies that, you know, are run by women, you know, pushing women.
Yeah, it's essential. Okay, let's move on from that. Another interesting topic is, like, in 2018, I feel like more artists than ever are kind of stressing how intense this industry can be, because it is intense. Like, you know, there's so many highs and so many lows, and I think more and more people seem to be talking about kind of mental well-being and the effects it has, but it does still feel like it's a bit of a taboo topic. But what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think we're doing enough to support the mental well-being of artists and people in this industry?
I think once again, it's not necessarily down to the individuals themselves, but it's down to the management teams behind them. For example, Tim Berg, poor fucker, literally got, railed straight into the ground by the team that was running him because they weren't looking after him at all. They just saw him as someone who was going to bring an X amount of cash each week, and he had to make it to each gig. And they were literally propping them up, injecting them with shit. Like it is once again something that requires a massive institutional shift in order to make people. I mean, like on a ground level, everyone is empathetic. All of us are fully aware of the issues that friends of ours have had or colleagues, etc. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of it's a matter of the industry itself at the highest echelons becoming more conscientious about how it is that they support people, basically.
Yeah. Anything to add, Fred?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point about management. I feel like there's a lot of pressures coming from all behind the scenes on DJs that are just people don't really understand. Like, as a promoter, like looking after an artist means buying them like a massive bottle of vodka, and like that you know, it's just the way that the whole scene is set up for these poor people that are doing the touring and all that stuff is just like makes it this constant like party for them, and everyone's on board. But yeah, I think something that Plastician, a kind of dubstep and grime producer, pointed out recently was that DJs often feel bad complaining about their lifestyle.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Like complaining about, I've got to get another plane or...
And there's a really good Twitter called DJs Complaining about that, which like sometimes is really funny, but then sometimes like if someone's, you know, being in an airport on your own, traveling around, like staying up all night, it's probably very draining and very lonely, and pointing that out publicly, you know, is probably going to attract derision mostly. But I think he raised a good point, and I think more DJs probably need to shine a light on the less glamorous side of their life so that people understand what it really is.
Yeah, 100%. Jess, are you looking to add? No? Yeah? You're looking at me like you want to say something.
I was just looking. Yeah, I think, you know, it is a hard job, and I think, you know, people actually don't understand, you know, what it is. Like, as an artist, it's great from the outset, social media, everything looks all pretty, but, you know, like, we have got, like, these issues behind closed doors, and, you know, like, that also needs to be taken into consideration, really.
I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and he was sort of saying, it's Andy, shouts to Andy. Andy was saying that basically, like, you know, is it such a crazy idea that a promoter could actually look after an artist when they were with them? Like, why don't you take them out for like a healthy meal and like a swim? I know it seems like ridiculous, and it is ridiculous,
swim.
but that's how that's how ingrained the kind of like, you know, touring being this constant crazy binge. That's how ingrained that is. Yeah, like, well, some people have great riders, and yeah, a pool. There you go.
No, I agree. Like, swim or not, whatever your form of exercise of choice is. Sauna, yeah. But yeah, you're right. We should be working together. Like, we are all in this crazy ride together. Have we got a question over there? Hi.
No, I mean, my kind of idea that's quite wacky and like probably not actually something that you could bring in. I completely get what you're saying. Like, the fees and demands of DJs is pretty massive.
Yeah, I think in reality, we need people educating DJs and promoters about the stresses of touring, and then maybe getting DJs to reduce their fee a little bit so they can then go and have a nice hotel or get nice food. That would be good.
Yeah, Toby, what would you like to add?
I mean, it's not usually the DJs who are making all the requests. It's the agency. So when and if you can, going direct to the DJs tends to alleviate that issue quite well. If you have any like prior relationships or something, rather than actually going through the agency, who will try their level best to just get everything that's completely unnecessary. If you could just be direct with them about it, say like, look, like what is it you're after? How do you want to be looked after? On the majority of the time, they're pretty reasonable people, you know. I've only come across one or two like very big divas since I've been promoting, and I've been doing it for like 6-7 years now. So I feel that for the most part, the majority of DJs are just people who want a decent night's sleep and to be fed okay on the whole, basically.
Cool, thank you for that question. By the way, I should have said, if you do have a question, just stick up your hand at any point. Oh, hello. Your hand is up. Oh, he's got a mic. Do you want to start again?
Yeah, thanks. This healthy side of the artist lifestyle is really important because you need to get sleep, you need to be, I don't know, work out, you need to, you know, to not drink too much or, I don't know, smoke or anything, you know, it will like affect you eventually. Or the environment, where are you in, like you said, the promoters, how are they acting like, or what are the promoter actions? Does it you know, affects the artist or people around him, or you know, how is the
I think
promoter
promoters do have a duty of care, as we said. Like, if you're inviting this DJ or artist in, I think you do have a responsibility to like just make sure nothing goes too far. I think, you know, if you're putting on nights, obviously enjoy it, but you should be taking it seriously. And, you know, if that means not doing like 10 shots of vodka and God knows what else, like actually staying alert to make sure that if anything goes wrong, if the DJ is going too far, or if there's an incident in your club maybe, like you need to be on hand to take responsibility for that. I think you guys probably agree. Yeah.
I mean, like, as an artist as well, like, as we've covered, it's like, sleep is, like, the main thing, you know, and I think, like, it's down to the artist as well. Like, for me, like, I don't smoke and I don't drink, but, you know, that's my choice, you know, to do that at events, because it is, like, an exhausting process that you're going through when you're traveling. Like, traveling is the main thing, so it's just kind of, like, taking into consideration the fact that you would spend like a lot of your time traveling, and that ultimately has an effect on your performance.
Yeah, I think working together and community is really important in this scene. And like you guys at Keep Hush, you have a big sense of community in your brand. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. So when we started Keep Hush, like, we wanted the community aspect to be like an explicit part of it, so that's why we ran it as a members club, and that just comes from our like main inspirations for doing it. And so I already talked about the kind of drum and bass community that I liked when I was 15, but then there's also harking back to the days of like Big Apple Records, Paradise Garage. Like, you feel like all these magic moments in music happened from like quite small like DIY communities. And yeah, so that's why we do what we do, is to try and capture a sense of that. Yeah. Should I talk a bit more?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. We basically kind of, one of the ways, we try and encourage that in many ways, but like one of the main ways we do it is the events themselves. By chance, the venues hardly ever have green rooms. So the DJs and the artists will have to like mingle with everyone else that's at the event. We'll have the decks like in the middle of the room, and we'll have the big guys going back to back with new artists. So it really creates this sense that everyone is on the same page. Like, there's no headliner. Everyone just has to chat to each other. Artists like sometimes complain about it, but end up like really liking it. So yeah, that's one of the ways we kind of enforce community.
You will work together and you will enjoy it. Yeah. Jess, what about you? Obviously, you run a DIY night in Liverpool. And there's because you've done some events in some crazy places, like a supermarket, I think.
I've done a few in an old supermarket, an old police station, art galleries, and like disused warehouse spaces. So I tend to like use these locations like once if it's really special. Like I'll use the space again. But I think like with my party, I'm really lucky because like I have a good community of people, like a returning community, and that's basically down to the fact that like with the parties, like I cap the capacity. It's kind of like a laid back approach to clubbing, and everyone kind of feels like a family, and that's the kind of vibe that I set out to do like with the party, and luckily that's the way it's turned out.
I've been promoting for the better part of a decade, and I've found because basically down to the fact that people have less money in their pockets now than they did 6-7 years ago. People have been very, very much more selective of what it is that they want to engage with, which is, I mean, it's not great that everyone's more broke, but it does mean that everyone is being much more selective of how they curate stuff and how it is that they try and get people to engage with what they're doing. And the community aspect of an event is always first and foremost, and should be for every single promoter. I mean, it's the reason why you have people like Elro, who have absolutely dominated, but at the very crux of what they do, it is literally, it's a party for their following, effectively. It is a global brand, but with a community-orientated mindset, basically. So yeah, like in Britain at the moment, we're kind of coming into what I think is a new kind of promotional heyday. We have free parties going on left, right, and centre. We have, which are completely detail orientated. Like the idea behind them is you are very much like it's on a membership basis almost, because you can't use Facebook to promote them. Otherwise, the fuzz will find out about it. So the entire premises is through mail lists. It's through engaging people on a regular basis. It's about building a family around the brand. And at the moment, the DIY scene in the UK, I think, is the best it's been for decades, pretty much.
Yeah, I would agree to that. And what do you think has like caused this spike in popularity of like DIY nights?
Well, because everyone's broke, and
also
because venues are dying left, right, and centre, and the ones that are left are run by big multinationals. Well, not multinationals, but they're big corporate affairs. You're having to fork out 15 quid for a drink. If you can go to a warehouse, bring your own booze, and like have a proper shindig with a couple of your mates, I mean, that's all anybody wants to do when they go out, is enjoy themselves. It doesn't matter whether they're forking out £12 for a bottle of water at Fabric or are in the woods somewhere out in Hackney Wick and just having a good time, you know.
Yeah, it's the like laid back atmosphere. It's kind of more like a house party than, like a rave. It's got a good sense of community when you go to them types of parties. Like a BYOB policy, as you say, like students don't want to fork out loads of money for drinks, if they're paying like £15 odd for a ticket.
Yeah, I think everyone's just trying to fit in, and communities have come back, and everyone wants to be part of a community now. And for me, that's why I think these DIY parties are working really well. It's the community aspect, I think.
And where do you see like the future of these parties going then? Obviously, because are you just gonna like, I don't know, what like for you guys?
Us?
Yeah.
We want to have communities, small communities, all over the world.
So lots of little communities.
Yeah, lots of little communities.
Yeah, we want everyone that's part of it to feel part of something bigger, but then not like get lost in it. So like, I don't know, if you're going off to like massive clubs, you don't feel necessarily part of anything bigger than yourself. Whereas, yeah, we want to capture that. So we'll be trying to keep having small communities all around the world and like engaging with them strongly.
Cool, thank you.
Jaguar, can I just break in here?
Oh,
We've
yeah.
actually run out of time, so if you've got one more question, by all means,
I
carry on.
did have one more.
Please,
if that
carry
is
on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, as this is about the future of dance music, like what kind of big change would you like to see happen in the next 5 years in our industry? Shall I start over there with Jess and then work this way?
Big changes. I'd like to see more inclusivity in lineups. From my personal perspective, I think obviously like it's growing and growing. Like it's been great to see more females like breaking through. I think that's definitely happening. But yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I'd like it to be easier for young people to get access into the dance music, working in the scene. I think it's really opaque right now and difficult to get in there. So yeah, that's my change.
Yeah, I could rant for ages about this, but I'm not going to. I basically just don't want to see streaming services control what we listen to. So there's been quite a trend, especially with Spotify, the way that they promoted the last Drake album, having his face on like every playlist, like every curated playlist, even like ambient chill and jazz. Yeah, his face was on it, and there were Drake tracks in it. It's kind of. I've grown up in an era where I've had access to all music, whether it was like LimeWire, but now Spotify. And it would be such a shame if the people younger than us that are growing up were listening to music through Spotify and are kind of having it controlled, or curated what they're listening to. I think that would really suck.
Yeah, and thank you. Toby?
I'd like to see more independent venues being supported by local government and communities, and for them to be recognised as further institutions for art that they are, as opposed to being relegated into the zones of, broad-term nightlife that every single local council seems to be going on about at the moment, basically. But here's hoping.
Yeah. Thank you very much to our panel. Thank you, guys.
Okay, just 1 second. Has anybody got any questions for the guys? Anybody like to ask a question for anybody here? Please, carry on.
Very quick one. If the world is sort of changing, sustainability is sort of a really big topic. Loads of people in the world are, going through poverty, for example. The music industry doesn't really have much of a synergy or connection with those topics. Considering this is about the future of dance music, what do you think the industry could do to make a difference on some of these topics? Very quickly.
More parties for causes. I mean, you have the cause in Tottenham, which always has a charitable identity attached to it. You have Grow in Tottenham as well, which is a club that's been based around a garden centre, which is doing really, really well. And then I've got a friend up in Manchester who's set up a company called Party for a Purpose, which is about clubbing, but with a certain amount of the proceeds going to supporting sustainable development in Malawi. Seeing more of that happen, I think, would be the best way of engaging it. And to be fair to the promoters, it helps people engage with your brand as well. Everybody likes doing something for good. So if you can go out and have a boogie and at the end of the day know that like it's going to help somewhere in an impoverished community somewhere, you're much more inclined to go do it.
I think more like sponsorship for these types of events as well, and the local councils getting involved with the different promoters to put on events that will promote that and support as well.